Here's a story we kind of missed a few months ago out of Washington, D.C., but it answers two really important questions. One, what is the sentence for killing two people in Washington, D.C.? Not talking about drive-bys, not talking about accidents, we're talking about a guy that kills his wife and their soon-to-be-born child. What is the sentence for that? 16 years. That's how long this guy stayed in prison before people from his church, people from his family, went to the parole hearing and said, this guy is a good guy, made one mistake. That doesn't define his life, does it? Let him out. He'll be a productive member of society. That's exactly what happened. Well, the crazy thing is, let's go to the first crazy thing. The first crazy thing is, look at this picture of the handcuffs. The handcuffs show a white guy in handcuffs. This is one of the fellas, not a white guy. I don't know why somebody from the Washington Post would use photojournalism. I'm using quotes since the whole thing of photojournalism is that's kind of a hoax too. But why would they portray a white person as a black killer? Anyway, the guy gets paroled, and one of the people who testified at his hearing belonged to a church where this guy went. His daughter ended up marrying the guy. She married a guy who killed his previous wife and their unborn child. A couple years later, he did it again. He killed 4 children, 2 of his stepchildren and 2 of the children he had with this unfortunate woman who thought it was okay to marry a reformed wife killer. Wow. Why don't we just blow through some of the story from the Washington Post? In 1991, a Michigan man, Gregory Green, stabbed his wife in the face and chest, killing her and their unborn child. Then he waited for police to come. After serving 16 years in prison for the murder, Green was released on parole with the support of family and friends, including a pastor who lobbied on his behalf and whose daughter, Green, would marry. Gregory and I were friends before his mishap. That's what they call killing people in Washington, D.C. And he was incarcerated. He was a member of our church. I feel he has paid for his unfortunate lack of self-control and damage he has caused as much as possible, and he is sorry. If he was to be released, he would be welcomed as a part of our church community, and whatever we could do to help him adjust, we would, including apparently, this is like some kind of like medieval thing, right? Or prehistoric thing, we'll offer up my daughter as a sacrifice to this misunderstood killer. Released in 2008, soon married that dude's daughter. They had 2 of their own kids. Then came a shocking slaughter. September 2016, Faith, his wife, was found. But he tied up his wife with duct tape, then he killed their kids in Dearborn, Michigan, right in front of her. Her foot had been shot and her face slashed with a box cutter. Her two Gregory Green, the killer's stepchildren, were with her. They died of gunshot wounds. She watched them die. Her 2 younger children, the children he had with this misunderstood dude, they were upstairs poisoned with carbon monoxide. I think he put them in a car and fixed up the car. The killer was Green, Harris Green's husband, the same man whose freedom her father had advocated for more than a decade before. Just like he did the first time, he called 911 and waited. Back in prison. Now he's back in prison. Won't be eligible for parole until he's 97. So that means the sentence, they say, well, there's really 2 sentences. The sentence They say if he's on good behavior, the sentence will be like 40 some years. But all that is dependent upon the grace and the good judgment of people who run the parole board, people who run the criminal justice system in Washington, the people who have made a specialty out of excusing black criminality. That sentence, that 47-year sentence, or that 40-year sentence, or 40, whatever it is, 47, that's all that means. The wife got up and said he was a con artist, he was a bad person, blah, blah, blah. Will go to hell for all of eternity. Nobody knew why he killed his family. He cried when he described what he did out there in Dearborn because, well, that stuff just doesn't really happen in Dearborn, does it? And the story kind of goes on and on and on. Talks about how he got denied parole. Talks about how he stayed out of trouble, how nobody could figure out what was going on. I'm not 100% sure what this figuring out what was going on. The photojournalist figured it out. Well, this could be a white guy, could be a black guy. Let's just pull up a photo of a white guy in handcuffs. It's all the same thing, right? Even though we know that in Washington, D.C., one of the most truly dangerous cities in America. I've done many stories in Washington, D.C., how they let killers on the street, let out killers from prison as part of a plan to rehabilitate them when they're young. And like some crazy number of these guys they tried to rehabilitate just went out and started killing more people, including a lot of the gentrifiers, a lot of the yuppies who live in D.C., who work for the government, who believe the greatest lie of our generation, that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time. Everywhere that explains everything. That's why we got to stop arresting them, stop convicting them, and stop sending them to prison. That's criminal justice reform. That's what they hear every day, 9 to 5. That's what they work for, 9 to 5. They get off work thinking they can walk to their home, thinking they can walk around the corner to the little grocery store. Next thing you know, we hear the neighborhood activist, who's also fits the same profile of being a government worker who's down with the cause. She doesn't quite understand why the cause is not down with them. Explaining to us how we need more police out here. How could this have happened in our neighborhood? How? Instead of being one of the few people in D.C. who actually will connect the dots, talk about this level of black criminality and violence, and so many reporters and public officials are in denial, deceit, and delusion about it. You know why. It's all because they don't want to make the black kids angry.